Welcome to the conversation on the TYT network. From time to time, we focus on local elections. There's a reason for that, because those are the ones that wind up making all the difference when control of a state legislature, for example, is on the line. And it also plants the seed for folks who might become huge national figures later. So we've got an excellent case of that here in New York. I want to welcome back Patrick Nelson. He was a Just Democrat back in 2018. He worked on Bernie Sanders campaigns in 2016 and 2020, and now he's in a critical election that's a state Senate seat in New York in the 43rd district. Patrick, it's good to have you back on.
Thank you for having me back, Cenk. Seems like an annual tradition at this point, and I always appreciate the opportunity to come here and for the impact that you and your audience have on some of the important issues throughout the state and the country.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, brother. All right, so let's do it. First of all, why is this 43rd district in New York so important overall?
Well, I would say the last time I was on here, we were talking about a rather esoteric party rule, right? That had an impact making that change. I think it probably helped Jamal Bowman and Mondaire Jones and down ballot progressives. But this time we're talking about no small thing. We're talking about the opportunity for universal healthcare, guaranteed healthcare for 20 million New Yorkers, making the opportunity to make New York the first state that has a guaranteed healthcare system. We sit right now that a bill called the New York Health Act has passed the state assembly in 2015, 2016, and 2017, always died in the state Senate. And right now it is one vote away in terms of co-sponsorship from being able to pass the New York State Senate. And I'm running to be that vote that puts that bill on the floor of the state Senate and sends it to the governor's desk. And this puts more pressure. I mean, if we make it work in New York, it's a great step forward for the country. It also puts pressure on California to get their bill to the governor's desk and get that signed. It shouldn't have taken a global pandemic for us to recognize that we need to guarantee healthcare as a right to everyone. But it certainly has made that case.
Well, I hear that if you could make it in New York, you could make it anywhere. But really, Patrick, your seat for that reason alone happens to be one of the most pivotal seats in the whole country, and it's a great source of frustration for me that blue states keep electing enough Republicans for them to be able to gum up the works and not allow for any progress. So they've got to stop electing Republicans.
Yes.
Right.
And in our district, it harms us. We have the least productive senator in the history of our district. And that's not just because she's in the minority, it's because she refuses to do the work on behalf of our district and actually deliver legislative results.
So let's talk about how winnable this race is. So you're up against a Republican incumbent. So why do you think you got a shot at winning this?
Well, this district, so 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton lost this district by 4,300 votes. This district has flipped 9,000 voters in terms of registration into the Democratic column. So where we were 8,000 fewer Democrats than Republicans 4 years ago, there's now 1,100 more Democrats than Republicans enrolled in this district this year. 2 years ago, Senator Gillibrand won this district. Comptroller Tom DiNapoli won this district. Democrats for Congress won this district. This is an opportunity to break through. Joe Biden is up 20 points in upstate New York. If we run a strong campaign, get our message out, it's resonating with folks. More than 50% of the people we talk to among persuadable voters are supporting our campaign when we ask them. So we just need the help to make more calls, send more text messages, get our digital ads out there and send the mail. And we've got a chance to flip this district and make a huge impact on the healthcare future of this country and also on the political future, because it's a redistricting year. And we need to stop having gerrymandered Republican seats in the state of New York. And we also have to make sure that some of the more right-wing Democrats don't target some of our newly elected progressives in the redistricting process as well. Folks like Jamal Bowman, Mondaire Jones, AOC, we want to make sure that everybody gets a fair shake and it's not a political process.
Yeah, and so Patrick, let's talk about what would happen if you won. So at that point, you break the logjam and you guys could pass the legislation. First of all, a lot of different legislation that is stalled because of the Republicans having enough power in the state Senate to block things. But let's start with the healthcare bill. What would that look like in New York?
So it's a framework right now for a guaranteed healthcare plan. We would need to work with Washington D.C. because part of the way we fund it is with current Medicare and Medicaid money. But it is a guaranteed top to bottom New York health program with no co-payments, no deductibles, every doctor in network. I think there's still some work to be done on this bill. I've been in conversations with Assemblymember Gottfried, Senator Gustavo Rivera, the lead sponsors in both chambers. I want to devolve some of the power away from the governor and give it to the controller in certain areas. But ultimately, we're talking about a guaranteed healthcare proposal that would also has the add-on benefit of lowering property taxes and freeing up local government revenues throughout the state. $30 million in Rensselaer County, $6 million in Saratoga Springs. This is good for businesses, good for local governments, good for my village board, because we're getting raked over the coals by private health insurance for our employees. So it's good for entrepreneurs. I mean, you've probably faced this situation. I had it happen to me. I was working in a startup and a friend of mine collapses in a grand mal seizure. And I'm going through that uniquely American calculation of, when do I call 911? Right? Because it's gonna cost $5,000. We just raised $40,000 in angel investment. And a minute goes by, 2 minutes go by, and eventually I make the call. It did cost us that much. It was the right call to make, but nobody should be put in that position. And this is gonna help make New York more attractive to businesses. Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of hidden advantages in universal healthcare that folks don't talk about, partly because the media companies get so much money from drug companies to do advertising, so they bury it. But one of them is that it ends big business's giant advantage over small business. Because big business has plenty of money to pay for healthcare, but it's very difficult for small businesses to do that. So it helps kill off the competition for giant corporations when you put it on employers. So there's just so many different facets to it. Patrick, they're keeping it real in New York, and I know you got to work with the governor, and he's certainly got his upsides. But how do we know that if the Democrats have full control, that Cuomo won't find another way to not do it?
Well, he's kind of arguably has done that right now because we do have a Democratic majority, but we have right-leaning Democrats that are holding up some key progressive legislation. My district is well situated to solve some of that problem because it's a marginal district, and power within the conferences is driven. The majority leader talks to the people who make the majority. And those aren't the districts in Manhattan and Queens, those are the districts in upstate New York and Long Island. So as an upstate member, I've got an additional amount of influence in driving the direction of that conference in a progressive direction. And with the governor, he has said he will sign this legislation if it hits his desk. Time will tell, but that's why I would recommend that we not just get to 32 votes. I mean, please help us get to 32 votes, but support other down ballot progressive candidates throughout the state of New York as well, so that we build a strong coalition. And a lot of folks upstate, including like Rachel May and Jen Metzger, support the bill. A number of candidates, myself, Teresa McCalman, are also supporting it. So we've got a chance to have additional control there and a veto-proof majority that the governor will have to contend with, which will diminish his power over the budget and diminish his power over legislation and put the people more in charge in the direction of the state rather than just the executive.
And then one more advantage is having a progressive win upstate gives power to progressives that rather than the moderates who usually run in what are considered swing districts within New York. Yep. So that's another huge reason to support Patrick. NelsonforNewYork.com, by the way, is the website. NelsonforNewYork.com. That's NY. Well, NelsonforNY.com. And we'll put the links down below if you're watching later on YouTube or Facebook. So Patrick, we talked a lot about healthcare. What are some of the other issues that you think you can make an impact on if you win this critical seat in New York?
Well, we talked about internet last time, so let's talk about that again. We have a huge problem with broadband connectivity throughout the 43rd district in rural areas. And I back a public version of this. I'm a village trustee in Stillwater. We have public water, we have public sewer. If Verizon and AT&T don't want to do the job, why can't we have public internet? But what this does also is creates a model for, if we can do it in Ghent and Stuyvesant and Steventown and some of these far out rural areas, we can also do it in the 5 boroughs and have public internet authorities that deliver high-speed internet at lower costs. We know we pay some of the highest prices in the industrialized world. We talked a little bit about redistricting. We have very progressive climate legislation here in the state of New York, but it's a framework and goals, and we have to take a framework and goals and turn it into actual programs. And that's one of the things that we can also do in this area because, with everything that COVID-19 has shown us, pales in comparison to what a climate catastrophe could cause in this country and in this world. And we've got to start flattening that curve as well.
So Patrick, we have very little time. Just real quick, if there's one way that folks across the country could help you and hence help progressives get these victories in a critical state like New York, what would it be?
Head over to the website. If you can volunteer. If you can make a contribution of any size, it's absolutely helpful. We're only about $30,000 behind my opponent in terms of fundraising, and that is money she carried over from last cycle. We've actually held her neck and neck this cycle, and your viewers and this great network of progressives has the ability to help put us over the top and close that gap. So that would be a great thing to do.
All right, Patrick Nelson running in a critical seat in New York. I appreciate you coming on again.
Thank you again, Cenk, and thanks to everybody out there watching.
2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.